and the person asked him, well, do you believe that the aliens are real? And he said, yes, they are real, even though he hadn't seen them yet. And that caused quite a stir. And so Trump decided he was going to make the announcement that he was going to contact the Secretary of War and the heads of the other agencies to start gathering together and identifying these documents that related to the UFO issue and extraterrestrial intelligence. What he didn't realize, and he hadn't even acknowledged, is that in December of 2023, like almost 3 years ago now, the fact of the matter is they'd already been ordered to do that by the United States Congress. And this had followed a series of major public hearings that were taking place in the Congress, okay? And strangely enough, you've got people with above top secret security clearances sitting there who are deep inside the Pentagon, coming to the United States Congress and under oath testifying to them that we have recovered a non-human origin extraterrestrial spacecraft and the bodies of the occupants, which they've now tested and have determined that were non-human. You would think that that's going to be the top story on all the news outlets and newspapers across the country, but in fact it wasn't. And that was because the national security state has national security reporters in all of the major news media, and they would tell the board of editors of the media, don't print that story. Put it on, page 13 or something, like as if it was, dog bites man, a story about a postal inspector that got chased by a dog, and so the bottom line is, people have been hearing about this out of the corner of their ear, that there are these hearings going on in Congress and there are these announcements being made, etc. But the fact of the matter is, when we were talking with our people from the Citizens for Disclosure to contact the White House and to put pressure on President Trump to fulfill his promise, the people recoiled and said, what? You look stupid if you think you're going to try to get Trump to really do what he promised he's going to do, because he never does what he's promised he's going to do. He promised to disclose the Epstein files, and now all he's doing is fighting back and ordering the Justice Department to keep them secret, right? And so that this undermines the credibility of the New Paradigm Institute and the people who are trying to help coordinate the Citizens for Disclosure. We began this conversation, and the people from the Citizens for Disclosure are saying, well, not only do we not trust the president, this particular president, we don't trust any of the presidents. We also don't trust the Congress people, because they've known about this for a long time. They aren't doing anything about it. What we really need to do is focus on people's consciousness. Okay, that's what we want to do. And so that's the reason we're here this weekend, talking about consciousness, talking about the role that consciousness plays in how it relates to the, there you go, yeah, how it relates to the UFO issue. But people all have some kind of vague sense that clearly the issue of consciousness is involved in discovering that there's an extraterrestrial civilization, that should in fact expand your consciousness, right? And the reality is made up of a whole series of sort of concentric circles. There's a little circle in the middle of things that because you've seen them. You know that downtown is there. Your car is out front. You know that there's a chair in your house. These things that are part of your immediate concentric circle. Now, but then there's another circle around that of things that you believe to be true because you've been told that over and over. You believe that Italy is there and that the Colosseum is there, even if you haven't been there, because you've seen photographs of it. Okay, and there's other things that you've been told. You've been told that there are these spaceborne telescopes, like that the James Webb telescope that's up there, taking infrared readings of the exoplanets and stuff. People are actually now believing that, saying, "Whoa, that's really going on," because they have some confidence in the government still that at least some of those things are true. Okay, but then there's another concentric circle outside of that, in which there are things going on deep in the national security state and other places around the world that people suspect there's going on, but they don't know quite for sure whether it's true or not. And then there are other concentric circle outside of that, where there are some things that are absolutely extraordinary and would in fact upset their entire sense of reality if they were to conclude that those are true. Okay, so what we're dealing with here is these concentric circles. And the question arises is, how is one supposed to decide what it is one is going to believe? Do you have to see something? Now, of course, people don't even trust what they see because you got AI generated photographs all the time. You can prompt your AI, Grok, you can say, here, Grok, a friend of mine did this. We were up with Chris Ramsey up in Canada doing a major podcast, and we were getting done. We were going back to the airport, and we were in Canada, and I was commenting on how being in Canada is sort of like being in the United States back in the 1950s. Everything is kind of really mellow. Everybody's kind of nice, and and we were saying, gee, there's probably even a much smaller number of murders that are committed in all of Canada than in the United States. So he whips out his phone and says, "Oh, Grok," he said, how many murders took place in Canada last year as compared to the United States?" And they said, "Oh, there were like 39 murders in all of Canada last year." And, well, how many were there in the United States? 495. And so there, and then the AI says, "Why are you asking?" And I was kind of startled. I said, "What's the thing is interrogating you or something here?" And so Tyler said, "Well, we were just kind of commenting how nice it was here." And then they said, "Why are you thinking about moving here? Is that what's that?" And I said to them, I said, "Are you interrogating us?" And the voice said, this nice feminine voice, "Oh, I'm sorry, you caught me kind of interrogating you, And I said, "Well, what were you doing that for?" And she said, "Oh, well, we were just interested in, whether you were interested in moving to Canada, or not. We were just keeping some information." So the reality is that what he said, I said, "Holy shit." I said, that's bizarre. This kind of thing. It's like talking to a person. He said, "Well, watch this." And he said, "Look, he prompts the Grok. He says, look, I would like to have you prepare for me a 5-minute motion picture of Dr. Stephen Greer taking Linda Moulton Howe out on their first date." And that's all he said. Yeah. And like within a minute, all of a sudden it starts playing this 5-minute movie. There's Stephen Greer, knocking on the door, and they've got him in these little short shorts, looking really stupid, and with a big, ugly tie, carrying these dead flowers, And what they had done is they had actually picked up on the fact that this particular person, didn't have a lot of confidence in Stephen Greer, let's say, and so that they mocked him. They actually presented a character that was mocking him. And here's a whole 5-minute scenario with the dialogue going on, and you'd swear that this was somebody had a motion picture camera and took. So the fact of the matter is, there's the concentric circles of what it is that you actually believe now is shrinking, because you realize that there's false things going on, false videos going on. People can take they can find a recording of your voice, and they can completely have a whole full recording of you threatening to rob a bank or to kill the president or anything in your voice, and they subject it to a voice print, and it's your voice. So that we're in this moment here in history because of the evolution of the technology, where people are having lower and lower levels of trust in not only in government but in reality itself. And now we're being told the people are just catching up with like 100 years ago, approximately 100 years ago, 1923 to 1927, that there was this discovery being made that in fact there was a direct relationship between human intention and the actual material manifestation of reality. Okay, you've heard some conversations going on about that this weekend, because it's true. It turns out that what we've done in this particular age, we have been able to collide atoms together of different elements, to smash them together, and that they will break apart, and you can actually isolate an actual atom of a particular element. And then you can take the atoms and you can smash them together and they break down. So you have neutrons and protons and electrons. And then you can take one of the neutrons and you can smash them together and they break down into muons. You smash them together, they break down into leptons, and they keep on going down through like about 12 different layers of getting smaller and smaller and smaller, until finally you get these two leptons, I think it is, and you collide them together and they both disappear. Okay, they disappear out of material reality at all. Except that they, all of a sudden, in the next microsecond, they pop back into material manifestation. Not as a particle of mass, as a lepton, but as a wave of energy. And then they blank back out of material manifestation. And then the next microsecond, they manifest again as a material manifestation of either a wave of energy or a particle of mass. And people were astonished at this. And they were observing this going on, and as they observed this, they watched these inchoate quantum fields. When the leptons collided together and disappeared entirely, they discovered there were these inchoate quantum fields that were still in existence, but they had no material manifestation. But they would pop right back into material manifestation in the next microsecond. So what they were observing this, trying to figure out if there was some pattern pursuant to which they manifested in the next microsecond as either a wave of energy or a particle of mass. And they observed this over time, and they could not come up with any pattern whatsoever. No predictability whatsoever as to whether the next microsecond of material manifestation of these inchoate quantum fields was going to be a wave of energy or a particle of mass. And then what they discovered, however, is if they directed, one individual human being directed their human intention to the inchoate quantum field, intending for it to manifest itself as a wave of energy instead of a particle of mass, it would do so to a statistically significant degree. Okay? Bango. There goes the Newtonian Cartesian worldview. Okay? There goes the assumption that there's no relationship between human intention and material reality that exists outside of us, completely independent from us. We are, in fact, the victims of objective reality. Maybe we can dig holes and change things. We can build bridges and change things, but you can't just control reality itself. Well, it turns out that you can. Okay, and it turns out that they realize now that every single element in the entire universe, as far as we know so far, that all 118 of them that are in the atomic periodic table, all of them, in fact, can be broken down into their constituent parts, and down and down and down and down until they get to inchoate quantum fields. Okay, and that we now know that directed human intention, directed to those inchoate quantum fields, can actually have an effect upon them manifesting as a particle of mass or a wave of energy. And so what's happened now is there's this realization, at least on the microscopic level, human intention has a direct effect upon what they refer to as collapsing the wave function. That the entire universe, every 1/1,000,000th of a second, blanks out of material manifestation and back into material manifestation in the next 10,000,000th of a microsecond. Okay? And it's in that interim that you can affect it. If you direct your intention into this field of inchoate quantum fields, you can actually have an effect upon the next microsecond. And it may be infinitesimal, but the question is, are there some people who have the capacity to raise their consciousness to the point where they can affect this on a larger scale, okay? So that they can actually cause things to materialize out of the plenum, okay? To materialize something or dematerialize something. And it turns out that they can. They happen to be recognized as prophets or actual founders of major religious traditions because they're capable of levitating. They're capable of transmuting water into wine. They're capable of laying their hands on a person who is ill and cure them of diseases. They're actually capable of laying their hands on a person who has died and bringing them back to life. Okay, and people are saying, that's such utter bullshit. You know, by the time I got to be a sophomore in college, I stopped believing all that stuff, right? Well, it turns out, big mistake. As it turns out, it's all true. Okay, but the reason that it's true is in this mysterious set of discoveries that we've made only in the last 100 years out of the entire millions of years of our human evolution. And we're just discovering this. So we're in this era now. Right now, you, the part of the 4 generations that are alive right now in the world, happen to be alive at this particular moment where not only are we discovering that human intention has a direct effect on collapsing the wave function and actually causing the material manifestation in a particular form, but in fact we're discovering, lo and behold, that the stars actually have planets around them. It's hard to believe, but like 30 years ago, you start asking the scientific community at all the major universities, are there planets around the stars? Well, we can't really say. We can't really say because we haven't seen them yet. We can't measure them yet. We can't determine what the atmospheres are. We haven't. So we aren't going to say those things exist. We can't see them, smell them, touch them, weigh them. You know, so that therefore we're not going to go out on a limb here because we're the scientists. You know, we're the scientists. And so the only thing that we're going to acknowledge, pursuant to the classic operational Newtonian Cartesian worldview, is that those things that we can see, touch, smell, weigh, hear, all those things, those we'll acknowledge are real. But then you say to them, well, but we already know that there's all kinds of light vibrational frequencies that we can't see. They say, well, yeah, but we've invented supplements to our seeing that are now able to directly experientially discern those other higher frequencies. You say, yes, but there are some that you can't, that you haven't yet been able to measure. And they say, well, we can't say that because we haven't measured them yet, okay? And so therefore, our whole reality is made up of that not being true. We're not accepting that, right? And the same thing is true with sound. You know, that there are sound frequencies higher and lower that we can't see yet. And so that they just say, well, we're not sure they're there, even though they are. Okay? And we all know now, I mean, we live in the age where there's radio waves going through us, television waves going through us, internet waves going through us all the time. You don't see them, touch them, taste them, you can't hear them, but they're going on. And so what's happening now is we're in a period of history where we're being thrown into a world where we now know that there are things going on other frequencies, sound, light, a vibrational frequency, and even in the material realm, there are other frequencies that we are not able to directly, immediately discern. Okay, and we've not yet developed the technology pursuant to which to experience those frequencies. Okay, but we're now suspecting that that something's going on here. And so now, when you in fact see a UFO come flying into your backyard and then all of a sudden disappear, all of a sudden people are saying, wait, I heard that story. I didn't believe that story at all before I realized that there was this whole thing of things manifesting out of the plenum. And it turns out that now we're in a situation where we've gotten 2 or 3 generations of people that are all alive right now that are beginning to get all at sea about reality.